December 29th, 1916. Petrograd, Russia. It's freezing outside, -4 degrees Fahrenheit. Inside a palace on the Moika River, a bunch of the richest, most powerful aristocrats on the planet are panicking. They just poisoned a guy with enough cyanide to kill a horse. He ate the pastries. He smiled. Nothing happened, so they shot him. In the chest, point blank. He fell. They waited. They were about to call it a night, when he opened his eyes, got up, and started crawling up the stairs toward the garden, bleeding, growling like an animal. They shot him again, and again. They beat him with a metal bar. They tied him up in a rug and threw him into an icy river. 3 days later, when they pulled the body out, the coroner found water in his lungs, meaning he was still alive when he hit the freezing water. He tried to claw his way out from under the ice. Who was this guy? A demon? A saint? A con artist? His name was Grigory Rasputin, a peasant, a thief, a self-proclaimed holy man. And for the last 10 years of Imperial Russia, he was the single most powerful person in the country, more powerful than the generals, more powerful than the ministers, and some historians argue, even more powerful than the Tsar himself. Rasputin predicted his own death 3 times, in writing. He wrote letters to the Empress saying, "If I am killed by regular people, you will rule for 100 more years. But if I am killed by nobles, your entire dynasty will fall within 6 months." He was killed by nobles. 6 months later to the day, the Russian Empire collapsed. The Tsar stepped down. The family was executed. Coincidence? Cursed prophecy? Or something much darker? Today we are going to do something most history channels don't do. We're going to forget the myths. No dancing with demons. Instead, we will look at actual police reports, medical records, and hypnotic techniques. You will finally understand. Was Rasputin a magician? Or just the most brilliant manipulator in history? Let's start at the beginning, in the frozen swamps of Siberia. Part 1. The making of a shaman. Let me ask you something. Imagine you live in a village so remote that the closest doctor is a 3-day horse ride away. There are no newspapers, no internet. Your religion is a weird mix of Orthodox Christianity and ancient pagan rituals your great-grandfather never quite forgot. That was Siberia in the 1880s. Grigory was born somewhere between 1864 and 1869. He didn't know his exact birthday. That's important. He was always a little shady about facts. His last name wasn't even Rasputin at first. It was Novik. The nickname Rasputin comes from an old Russian word meaning debauched one, or crossroads. Like a fork in the road where you get lost. And as a young guy, he lived up to the name. We have actual police records from Tobolsk. He got caught stealing horses, caught stealing firewood. He drank, he fought. By all accounts, he was just another village troublemaker. Then, at age 30, something changed. He was sleeping in a field, under a haystack, and he said the Virgin Mary appeared to him. Or maybe it wasn't Mary. He told different versions to different people. But whatever happened, he dropped everything. He left his wife, who later gave birth to 3 kids he barely saw, and he walked. He walked from Siberia to Greece, from Greece to Jerusalem, from Jerusalem to the White Sea in the Arctic, 2 years on the road. Sleeping in graveyards, eating scraps. This is where he learned his craft. Rasputin studied with a secret Christian sect called the Klisti, which means whips. These people believed the way to get closer to God was to wear out the body, through spinning, chanting, and sometimes group sex. Their logic was, sin until you are so ashamed of yourself, you will beg for forgiveness, and then God will truly see your humility. Weird? Yes, but also genius psychological manipulation. From the Clasty, Rasputin learned 3 things. First, the headless gaze. You stare at a person without blinking for 3 or 4 minutes. They get uncomfortable. Then they become suggestible, like a deer in the headlights. Second, the whisper. Never yell. Yelling breaks the trance. Lower your voice. Make people lean in. Third, rhythm. Chant any words, even nonsense, on the same breathing rhythm. The human brain will naturally drift into a light hypnotic state. When Rasputin arrived in the capital city, St. Petersburg, in 1905, he had no money, no education, no connections, but he had these 3 tools. And he walked right into the palace. Why did the royal family even open the door? Great question. You'll love the next part. Part 2. The Sick Kid and the Miracle. The Russian royal family, the Romanovs, had a secret. A terrible, painful, shameful secret. The only son, the heir to the throne, a beautiful little boy named Alexei, was sick. Not with something you could see, but with something that turned every little bump into a death sentence. He had hemophilia B. You know what hemophilia means. If you cut your finger, your blood clots and stops. For a hemophiliac, the blood keeps flowing. A bruise on the shin becomes a swelling the size of a grapefruit. A fall from a chair can cause internal bleeding into the joints. The pain, doctors described it as knives twisting inside the bone. There was no cure in 1905. None. Today we have clotting factor. Back then, the best doctors in Europe, from Germany, France, England, all said the same thing. Keep him calm. Pray. The Empress, Alexandra, was losing her mind. She had already lost 1 child, a miscarriage. She had 4 healthy daughters. But the son was everything. Without him, the dynasty ended. And the doctors, here's the tragedy. Doctors at that time prescribed aspirin for pain. You know what aspirin does? It thins the blood. For a hemophiliac, aspirin is literally poison. It makes the bleeding worse. So the royal doctors, with their degrees and their fancy suits, were accidentally killing the boy. Then came Rasputin, the first miracle, 1907. Alexei is 3 years old. He falls, bleeding from his belly button, a bizarre, terrible injury. The doctors give up. They tell the Empress to prepare for the worst. Rasputin walks in. He asks to be alone with the child. He closes the door. 25 minutes later, he opens the door and says, "The bleeding has stopped. He's asleep." The Empress runs in. The boy is pale but breathing. The blood has clotted. Now, was it magic? No. Let me tell you what actually happened, based on court nurse memoirs and modern medical analysis. Rasputin did 3 things. First, he stopped the aspirin. He had no medical degree, but he knew folk medicine. He told the nurses, "No more of those white pills. Make a tea from nettle and yarrow. Nettle and yarrow are natural coagulants. They actually help blood clot." The doctors were furious, but it worked. Second, he opened the window. Sounds stupid, right? Wrong. Hemophilia pain gets worse with heat. The royal nursery was a furnace. Stoves, carpets, heavy drapes. Heat dilates blood vessels. Cold constricts them. By opening the window in winter, Rasputin triggered vasoconstriction, narrowing the blood vessels, which naturally slowed the bleeding. Third, he hypnotized the kid. This is the real superpower. Rasputin would sit next to Alexei, take his hand, and start whispering in that rhythmic, low chant. The pain is leaving. It is flowing out through your feet into the floor. You are heavy, so heavy. Sleeping now. Emperor Nicholas II wrote in his diary, after Grigory visited, Alexei became calm. not just sleepy but peaceful, as if the agony had been lifted by hand. The Empress, Alexandra, was not stupid. She was desperate, and desperate people will believe anyone who gives them hope. From that day on, she called Rasputin our friend, always with capital letters. She wrote him letters that said, "I kiss your hands and lie at your feet. You are our savior." And because she loved her son more than her own life, she would do anything Rasputin suggested. Anything. And now, we get to the dark part. Part 3. The rituals, hypnosis, wine, and the bathhouse. Let's talk about sex, because we have to. The myth of Rasputin is that he was a sex-crazed monster who hypnotized women into orgies. The truth is weirder and more complex. The secret police, the Tsar's own security service, followed Rasputin everywhere. They left detailed reports. Hundreds of pages. What did they find? Ritual 1. Humbling the proud flesh. Rasputin believed that the worst sin was pride, arrogance, and his therapy for pride was controlled sinning. He would tell wealthy bored society women, "You think you are good because you go to church and wear nice dresses, but inside, you are cold. You have never truly begged God for forgiveness. So come to my apartment. We will sin together. Then you will feel such shame that you will cry for 3 days. And then God will hear you." To modern ears, this sounds like manipulation. But dozens of women we have their letters genuinely believed he saved their souls. One noblewoman wrote, "After those nights, I cried for a week. I wanted to kill myself from shame, but then a peace came over me that I have never known." Was he sleeping with them? The police reports say yes. But the women reported something strange. They didn't enjoy the act itself. They came for the confession before and the crying after. Rasputin was not a lover. He was a spiritual dominatrix. Ritual 2. The bathhouse and the wine. Rasputin loved hot baths, not because he was clean, but because heat plus steam plus alcohol creates a hypnotic state in himself first. There's a famous entry from Prince Felix Yusupov, the guy who later killed him. Yusupov described finding Rasputin in his private bathhouse, alone, naked, pouring expensive red wine onto hot stones. The steam smelled like grapes and burning wood. Rasputin was mumbling prayers backwards, a classic trance technique used by shamans from Siberia to South America. When Yusupov asked what he was doing, Rasputin said, "I am washing the lies off my eyes. In the steam, I see the truth." "Today your dad will fire the Secretary of War." Yusupov laughed. He called his dad, and his dad said, "How did you know? I just signed the order an hour ago." Ritual 3. The card trick. This sounds absurd, but it's in multiple memoirs. Rasputin played solitaire. Not for fun. He would lay out playing cards and assign each card a government minister. If the solitaire worked red queen on black king, the minister kept his job. If it didn't, Rasputin would call the Empress and say, "The cards say he's a traitor. Fire him." And she did. Between 1911 and 1916, Russia had 4 different prime ministers, 6 different secretaries of the interior, 8 different attorneys general. Why? Because Rasputin shuffled the cards. Part 4. Political power, how an illiterate peasant ran an empire. Let's be clear. Rasputin could barely write. His surviving letters are filled with misspellings and childish drawings instead of punctuation. He never read a law book. He never attended a cabinet meeting. Yet he chose who ran those meetings. Here is the mechanism. and this is important for understanding how Russia collapsed. Step 1 star. The Empress Alexandra is desperate to save her son. Rasputin says, "If you want Alexei to live through the winter, do not appoint General X as Secretary of War. I had a vision. He will bring bad luck." Step 2. Alexandra writes to her husband, the Emperor, who is at the war front. She writes, "Our friend has seen it. Please fire General X, for the sake of our son." Step 3. The Emperor, who loved his wife more than politics, writes back, "Whatever you say, honey." Step 4. The general is fired. A new minister is appointed. That new minister may be corrupt, incompetent, or even secretly working for the enemy. But Rasputin approved him. This happened dozens of times. The most famous example, Prime Minister Koktsov. He was smart, honest, trying to fix the economy. He publicly said, "Rasputin is a disgrace to the throne." 1 week later, Koktsov was fired. The emperor's diary entry for that day, wife insisted. Didn't want to argue. The war years, 1914-1916. When World War I started, Rasputin did something shocking. He begged the emperor not to go to war. He said, "Stay home, father. The generals will get you killed. Make peace with Germany now, while you still can." He was ignored. Russia joined the war, and it was a catastrophe. Millions of soldiers died. There was no food in the cities. The army ran out of rifles. Soldiers were told to pick up guns from dead comrades. And who did the common people blame? Not the generals, not the politicians. They blamed the crazy monk who was sleeping with the Empress. Rasputin became the perfect scapegoat. The rich hated him because he had power without education. The poor hated him because they heard stories of his orgies. The priest hated him because he wasn't a real monk. By 1916, everyone, and I mean everyone, wanted him dead. Part 5. The Assassination. Why it took 4 bullets, poison, and a river. Prince Felix Yusupov was the richest man in Russia, richer than the Tsar. He had palaces, art collections, a beautiful wife. But he also had a burning hatred for Rasputin. Yusupov invited Rasputin to his palace on the Moika River. The excuse, "My wife wants to meet you. She's sick. She needs your blessing." Rasputin knew it was a trap. He had written to the Empress 2 weeks earlier, "Evil men are sharpening a knife for me. Don't cry, mother. I will go to God." But he went anyway. Act 1. The poison Yusupov. Put potassium cyanide into cream pastries. Enough cyanide to kill 5 men. Rasputin walked in, smiled, and ate all the pastries. Nothing. He drank wine with cyanide. Nothing. Why didn't he die? 2 theories. One of the conspirators was a doctor who secretly gave a weak dose because he was curious to see what would happen. Act 2. The gun. Yusupov panicked. He pulled out a revolver and shot Rasputin in the chest, point blank. Rasputin collapsed, blood on the white carpet. The conspirators celebrated. They turned on music. They drank champagne. 20 minutes later, Yusupov went back to check the body. Rasputin opened his eyes. He stood up, blood pouring from his lung, and he lunged at Yusupov, grabbing his throat, screaming, "Felix! Felix! I will tell the Empress tomorrow." Yusupov ran upstairs, screaming. The other conspirators ran down. One of them, a politician named Perishkevich, fired twice. 1 bullet hit the spine, 1 hit the head. Rasputin fell again. This time, they beat him with a rubber club filled with lead. Then they tied him in a rug, drove to the river, and threw him through a hole in the ice. Act 3. the river. Later there, the body was found, and blow up and blow. The coroner's report, you can look it up online, it's real, said, water in the lungs. The victim was alive when thrown into the water. He struggled to escape from under the ice. Rasputin died by drowning. Not by bullets, not by poison. His arms were found raised above his head. He had tried to claw his way out, but the cold paralyzed his muscles. Remember what he wrote to the Empress? If nobles kill me, your dynasty will fall in 6 months. He was murdered on December 29th, 1916. On March 15th, 1917, not even 3 months later, the Tsar stepped down. Why? Because the murder showed everyone that the emperor could not protect his own holy man. If the nobles could kill Rasputin and get away with it, the monarchy was already dead. Conclusion. What do we learn? So, what was Grigory Rasputin? He was not a demon. He was not a saint. He was a perfect storm. 3 things made him powerful. 1. A desperate mother, the Empress, who confused hope with holiness. 2. A weak father, the Tsar, who confused peace with cowardice. 3. A country that was starving for a miracle and would believe any lie wrapped in prayer. Rasputin didn't destroy the Russian Empire. The empire destroyed itself. He was just the symptom, the boil that burst, the sign that the patient was already terminal. But here is the chilling question, and I want you to answer in the comments. If Rasputin had lived, could he have hypnotized the revolution away? Could one guy with a whisper, a deck of cards, and a bathhouse have saved the Tsar? Or was the empire already on fire, and Rasputin was just the guy who handed out the matches? And thanks for watching. If you want to dive deeper, subscribe. See you next time.